5 stages of FREED. And through a lot of work in 2009-10, we accepted our plight and went to work addressing our challenges. I have some examples there, but they'll be on the printed copy. Next, we began restructuring of the organization to find the most cost-efficient service delivery venue, given our declining revenue stream every year through 2014. And my office recommended and City Council agreed to the following: complete privatization of the Building Inspection Department, complete privatization of the operation and management of our 2 golf courses, regionalization of the animal control to Oakland County, a hybrid engineering department, you know what that means, as well as a hybrid planning department, in-house code enforcement, a Troy Museum under the auspices of a 501c3, and the Troy Nature Center under the auspices of a 501c3, and thanks to the volunteers that make that work. John Reagan was there tonight and spoke about what a great job they're doing, and Lorraine Campbell had the benefit of a historical society that was in place for decades, and those folks are all doing a great job. Those actions alone, and they all fall under Mark Miller's sleeve of community and economic development, reduced our full-time staff by 51 people. Overall, across the entire organization, from 2005-06, our high point of employees, our full-time staff was cut from 485 people to we now have 341 people, and we're not finished making our cuts. That's a reduction of 144 people. Many were by attrition, many took the ERIP program, but many more were laid off. And I wanted to formally thank the governing body for working with us in making those difficult decisions necessary to create our sustainable organization. I mean, you could have told me to just have a 1-year budget and kick the can down the road and essentially go through a crisis every year to try to find a solution, but you didn't, and it was greatly appreciated. We then went about to change the culture of the organization. And because we've always had a culture of professionalism that permeates our entire organization, acceptance of change management was not an insurmountable task. And this became evident by having every employee group take at least a 10% concession. And I found that, as manager, even more remarkable when we considered that our workforce has been reduced by more than 1/3, and so the employees that took cut in pay did so and were asked at the same time to do more because there was less people to perform that work. And in addition, many labor unions reopened their contracts in order to realize concessions. And I don't think there's any other city or county around where every employee took concessions. We set the standard in that regard. And again, that's all. Those are my notes. You'll have them. And additionally, I think it started out as a recommendation of Mr. Slater and Mrs. Beltramini to have what's called ERIP, Employee Concession Initiative. And that not only reduced reliance on our fund balance, but we now have projected revenues exceeding projected expenditure for the first 2 years of our 3-year budget. And I don't think too many cities with even a 1-year budget are showing that. And just as I thanked the mayor and council, I wanted to thank all of our employees formally for making those concessions. And because of that, not solely, there was also best practices, but mostly because of the employee concessions, we were able to reinstate our 24-hour snow removal protocol on all county major, city major, and local streets in Troy. And we're doing this with in-house personnel because of cross-training and reinstating the 8 positions in the Public Works Department as recommended by the ICMA report, but we also require contracted services, even though Tim Richnack proved that it's more cost efficient to have the public sector perform this work than the private sector. We just didn't want to hire any more people to do that. And of course now, as you realize tonight, we formally have a contract now with the Road Commission for Oakland County, and we are going to subsidize snow clearance on all roads in the city of Troy within 24 hours after a snow. course, that was then. This is now what we're doing. We will carry on the continuous improvement process. I did hire Monica Ireland to be an assistant to the city manager, as well as what I call coordinator or director of continuous improvements. Tonight you received information from police, fire, public works, and building maintenance that are essentially part and parcel of the ICMA recommendations that are also, in my view, part of a best practice element. And we will include those reports tonight on our website as part of our best practices. Also want to mention that retention and attraction of quality employees is also a best practice. In terms of comparative analysis, at the MML conference that Mary mentioned that we had went to, Governor Snyder was one of the speakers at the conference, and he indicated that a municipality does not really know how well it's performing unless a comparative analysis is made to other municipalities. And that's one of the reasons that he's requiring a performance dashboard to go online so that residents, through transparency, can look at specific elements of their municipality against other municipalities. And I could not agree with the governor more, and I'm always recommending to my colleagues, my employees, my bosses, residents, businesses, anyone that I see, that if another city is doing a better job than we are, please advise, and we'll be happy to pirate their best practice into what we're doing in the city of Troy. You may recall this slide from about 2 years ago. I had asked Nina Licari, again in 2009, to go to our highest taxable value year, that was 2008, and extrapolate where he thought, and again, we also recruited outside subject matter experts, where they thought how long it would take to reach our taxable value that we had in 2008. And as the chart shows, it will be about 20 years essentially, until 2028, when we reach our taxable value again. And you'll notice that, if I hit the right button here, 2014 is the year that we bottom out. And we drove our entire organization to reduce expenses in line with this declining taxable value estimate. We did that through staff reductions, concessions, reductions in services, and reductions in other expenses. And from an organizational restructuring and staff perspective, we'll continue with best practices, but I think at this time, after you've seen everything already, most of those changes organizationally will be more akin to rabbit hunting than elephant hunting. We've already hit the big ticket items. Of course, I've got to take a look at the finance and administration area, but we're very lean there. There's not going to be a huge amount of savings, even though we could implement perhaps some best practices there. And given all we have accomplished, I believe the council-manager partnership has a new, more evolved job number one, if you will, and that is to engage the entire community for reason of doing whatever it takes to increase our taxable value. Increase that taxable value line, try to get it increases in residential, commercial, industrial properties, trying to get jobs here before we bottom out at 2014, so that maybe we could bottom out in 2012 or 13 and then start to increase our revenue line. And on a regional basis, I was getting a haircut last week looking at Forbes magazine, and Nino the barber, not Nino the assessor, let me take the magazine home, and Forbes had their top 25 best large metro areas to do business. And so I have them listed here. And they're all over the United States, but unfortunately none of them are in the state of Michigan. And I think in tandem with our objective to increase the taxable value in Troy on a regional and economic development initiative basis, we should also try to break into the top 25 areas, metro areas in which to do business. I then took the attributes, and these are attributes in the aggregate of the top 25 areas. And I'm not going to read them all, but we do have many of the attributes listed here that are conducive to the large metro areas where they are having job growth and a great place to do business. But notice the last two, affordable housing and home prices are rising, is a dichotomy, but that's essentially underpinned by the quality of life. So that if you have good quality of life in entertainment venues, people are willing to pay more for their homes. And the objectives of increasing our taxable value and becoming a top 25 metro area in which to do business will bring in more private sector jobs to Troy. It will be a destination point for young professionals and talented workforce. One of the few negatives on our dashboard is that even though our population had grown since 2000, the targeted population of, I think it's 26 to 34 or 24 to 36, is declining. And if we can become the top 25 metro area, we could be a destination point and bring in that young age group. We'd also be a draw for entertainment and quality of life venues. I forgot to mention quality of life, so I'll have that corrected. We'll attract and retain a talented municipal workforce and upgrade infrastructure and infrastructure maintenance. So what do you think?
Well, as I've said before, we've accomplished a lot. Actually, we should be proud of what we've had to do as a council and as a staff. Again, when you have difficult situations, that's when really you have to rise to the call of what you have to do. And we didn't shirk any of those responsibilities. Certainly the staff didn't shirk any of those responsibilities, and it's because they saw the picture too, so we really did work as a team with everything together. Councilwoman Beltramini?
You're right. But I kind of, it segues from what you were talking about, particularly from the conference. We did the master land use plan. We implemented the zoning ordinance. And we are light years ahead of surrounding communities as far as being able to redevelop those vacancies, particularly in the Maple Road corridor and along there. And we know that we have that nexus of high-tech businesses and finance and healthcare and so many of those industries that you noticed. And we can create the synergy of the supporting businesses that draw the knowledge workers. We can create the places that those folks want to live in along that corridor, and that also gives us a sustainable growing population that is absolutely critical to our future. We can do this, and we've laid the groundwork and the foundation to do it, and now good leadership can make that happen.
What was that?
Representative Kerwin?
Well, I really like the community piece, because that's really where you went, and I think that light went off at the convention, MML convention, when you thought this is it, and I think that that's true. We've done a lot of cerebral stuff. We've done a lot of infrastructure stuff, but it's until we can all share that same vision, until we can all say, aha, here it is. We do need to increase our property value. Then we can move forward in this century. So that I think is just critical. I think also, John, when you came in, this council had known for 2 years that we were unsustainable. Our former manager had let that be known, and yet we've kind of fiddled through that. It really wasn't until you came and said, these are the different directions we can take, called them options. These are the different directions, what should we do? But we were floating near the iceberg. I feel now that we have turned the ship, but that doesn't mean that the waters are not dangerous on the other side. I think it's key, the key to that successful journey on those dangerous waters is involving the entire community, done well with business, but all segments of our community together. And I think that will be a great initiative going forward.
Councilman Horwath?
I would probably look at kind of the manifesto, if you will, more broadly, and I think we're on the same page, it's just a matter of how we frame it. I mean, I would say, you know, kind of as a motto would be, let's get some more economic activity going and we'll all breathe a lot easier. One concern I have, and this kind of ties into some of our conversations over the past couple of months, is that is the maintenance of infrastructure. And you know, we can kind of hobble along here for a couple of years, but at some point these roads are going to be in really bad shape, especially the county roads. And I think we've got a lot going here. I think folks who don't have operations in the state of Michigan don't realize, A, it's easier to do business around here than it used to be. B, the property values are so low. There's such a ready-to-go workforce. You can make piles of money here. However, if we're held back by they come here and they see, you know, giant potholes all over the place and they get a flat tire in their rental car, you know, it's gonna, you know, those things, little though they may be, have a tendency to impact decisions, you know, because folks read more into it. They don't really care that it's a county road, not a city road. So that is a concern I have. At some point, we're all going to have to figure this out, because that's going to be a problem.
That infrastructure is also blight.
Yeah.
You know, no one wants to come to a blighted community.
Well, I think that's where it's going to be important, just as we've worked with other entities to try to get them to do what they're supposed to do on certain projects, or partnered with them to get a project done. That will be important, because there are things that Oakland County and the Road Commission can do, there are things that the state can do. And I think if the citizens realize that it's a partnership of many entities in order to take care of that situation, then that would be helpful, instead of saying, well, it's in the city of Troy, so just let the city council take care of it. Some things are not in the purview of the city council, but we certainly can partner with others to encourage them to get those done. But I think that the business of the valuation of homes is not really something that the city council, per se, can turn around. We can provide things, you know, we have good vision and goals, we've got things, the master plan, the zoning, everything's in place. But till that occurs, that's what's holding things down. That's what's holding businesses and people from coming to do things, because they know, and of course people here can't be selling because they don't want to lose what they already have into their houses. Councilman Slater and Councilman Fleming.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said, and to piggyback on Councilman Howlick, the important issue here is we know that revenues are going to continue to go down, so we have to find a way to increase the revenues. And for some reason, some people think that when you say that, all you're talking about is increasing the millage rate, when in fact that's the last thing that we're going to do. We want to find ways to increase the revenue to get more money without raising the millage rate. And you know, the things that you brought up about what other communities are doing, well, that's what we have to do, because nobody wants to raise taxes or millage rate, or that's the bottom line last thing you ever want to do. And I think it's an accomplishment what we've done here in the past 2 years to get our fund balance back where it needs to be, so we keep our bond ratings. I think it's, you know, when I saw that, I thought, geez, we've done a pretty good job over the last couple of years of getting our ship back, but we still got a bump in the road in 2014 if we don't do something to increase our revenue, okay, without raising millage rate, because we're not going to do that. So I think it's very important that we focus on these things that you brought up today. But I have another concern too, and that's, you know, we focus on revenue and all that other stuff, but I'm concerned about the employee base. We've done a lot of cuts. We've taken 10%. We've done the ERA program. We've cut pretty much all we can cut in that area. And, you know, I know morale here is not good. I brought that up at other council meetings because of the future. You know, what is the future here? So it's important, I think, for the employees that work here to understand that we've done a good job here. We've got a good 2 years going forward, and we thank them for what they did. But I'm concerned that we're going to be able to get good employees to work here, because I know at some point we couldn't get anybody to come here. And I don't know if that changed. What's the atmosphere out there now? Now that it looks like maybe we're not the laughing stock that we were when John and I went to a dinner a year, I think it was a year ago today almost. I think they're looking back up at us again. And I think the employees need to understand that too. I think that we appreciate what they did. Without them, we wouldn't be here. But we also have to let them know that's it. Okay, that's it. We need them to partner with us as well and move forward. So I just kind of like to know what the atmosphere is now. Have we changed? Are we?
Well, from a management perspective, what I tell the employees is that we have a 3-year budget, and they can look at the organizational charts, tables of organization, and they can see if they're there or not. And you know, it's unfortunate the cuts we made, but it's also fortunate now because most of the cuts have been made. And if the ERIP is successful in the police department, we could possibly proceed, even though it's a reduction in the workforce, of not laying anyone off. So, from a table of organization perspective, the employees feel good about that. All right. If the city council, that's why I spoke about a bridge. That's your term. That's not my term. But if the new city council takes the bridge, if you will, from the old job one, which was to restructure the organization, engage in best practices, and reduce the workforce by a third, if that job one is done, as your manager, I think it's done. Concessions have been made. If the new job one is to go external now, engage the community, do what you can do, take the focus away from the employees, and do what you can do to increase your taxable value, and as you mentioned, and increase our revenue without raising taxes, that would be a great boost for morale. But I can't promise them what's going to happen with the new city council. And so my answer is that from a management's perspective, I can say, look at the chart. Essentially, right now, if you're still here and you do a good job, you'll have a good job. But from a policy perspective on where the new council wants to go, I mean, if they want to revisit the employees, well, then that's a different story. And that's a different job one at that point. Then you have the same job one that other cities have that haven't done nearly what we have done. I had asked and it wasn't a planned question, but I have some backup material here. I had asked, I want to say Keith Richards, but that's the book I'm reading about. It's Keith Francis, who was a resident, who has a CPA, retired managing partner from Plant Moran. He gave me a cold email saying he'd help me out. And I interviewed him and said, you can help me out, sure. So he's getting us through the audit at this point, and which is almost completed. Every year we have to submit a total wage report. And so I asked him to go back to 2005. And our high point was fiscal year ending 2009, when wages, this is just wages that we report to the federal government, was $36.74 million. And we estimate wages to be, at the end of June 30th, 2011, to be $29.6 million. So that's over a $7 million decrease just in wages, a 20% decrease in wages. They've already done it. Okay. As far as attracting new employees, Peggy's closer to that than I am. Peg, you want to?
Sure.
I know about the controller, but you begin there if you don't mind.
Well, while we were able to save a lot of reduce, I guess, the expenses would be a better way of putting it, through the ERIP and the concessions, at least from the HR standpoint, we're paying a big price for it right now. We've got some significant challenges One of the first ramifications that we experienced was we lost there was an exodus of some very senior level, highly knowledgeable people that had a lot of historical value. In some cases, it decimated the department. Their people are now scrambling because they don't have the leadership, they don't have the knowledge base there to do and carry on the department the way it was carried on yesterday, if you will. We're having a big challenge in not only attracting but also retaining people. Controller, for example, we specifically sought out 12 excellent candidates that, under normal circumstances, we would have anticipated would welcome a job here. I mean, I've been around here long enough to know that for years we were the target. We were the destination point as an employer, and that's why we were able to collect the cream of the crop, and that's why we've had such highly qualified employees all these years. Now we're finding, for those 12, for example, that we sought out for controller, not one was interested. For fleet maintenance superintendent, light and heavy mechanic, we're having trouble getting candidates to apply. We're extending the application period. We are trying to be more creative in how we attract the people. It's to the point where if we are interested in expanding the client base and who we service from the fleet maintenance standpoint, we're not going to be able to do that unless we get people on board. We are also losing people. We lost someone from fleet maintenance who went for more money, better benefits, didn't have the threat of a 32-hour work week hanging over their head. We have had continuing trouble trying to attract people to work in the IT department. We've also, I think you're aware of it, John, this week we were notified that we're going to be losing another IT staff person, more money, better benefits, no furlough days, etc. So it's presenting some significant challenges for us in moving forward and getting people on board to do the work we said we will continue to do. So.
If I can add to that, try to make something positive out of Peggy's concept. Thank you, Peggy. And that is that what Mrs. Beltramini indicated, and that is that we are so far ahead of other communities. Where 2 years ago people were putting their hands on my shoulders saying, boy, John, it's too bad you don't know how to run the city because you have all these problems down the line with your projections. Now, if you go to their websites, they're $35–40 million in the hole a few years out, and that's negative $35–40 million of their general funds, and we're sustainable. I mean, Moody's gave us a AAA rating because even though we have declining revenues, we're stable through 2014, where everybody thinks we're going to pick up. And so, while those cities now are going through their one-year budget crisis and having huge problems with morale, because now those employees are wondering if they're going to have a job or not. If we can change our job one to increase our taxable value, because we've already taken care of essentially the elephant hunting and best practices and the concessions and the reduction of employees. If those employees can keep a clear head about their jobs and doing their job, we'll be more competitive because we'll be more engaged with the community to increase our taxable value, as opposed to having people maybe deciding to join the United Auto Workers to keep their job.
Councilman Slater, you finished, and then Councilman Fleming wanted to.
I guess just to follow up on that, I think that's not real positive, but I think it's important that whoever's left on council and whoever's going to come in here to understand that it's not just a challenge on the outside, there's a challenge on the inside too. But I've been around this city long enough to know that internally we're going to be okay eventually. We went through this in the 70s, and it actually precipitated the Hay study because we were going through the same issues at the time, and I'm confident we're going to get through this too with some good ideas in the future.
Councilman Fleming?
Yeah, John, I think you're right on with your goal of trying to break into the top 25 metro areas which to do business. I mean, that's a wonderful goal. You've identified who they are, Also, you're doing your comparative analysis with other cities, I think is spot on as well. Because the only way we're going to turn this around, it's a community effort, as we all know, but it's bringing in the business. You're not going to get the residents unless you have the businesses. And making Troy a destination, an easy place to do business, an economical place, and I think a lot of things are coming together. I'm optimistic, but we have to maintain our focus on that, making sure we are the best, identifying who are the best, doing the comparative analysis, not just in Michigan, but outside the state.
Exactly.
And that's going to help us attract business because everything goes in cycles. And I think what we're doing, we're going to be ahead of the curve. It's not going to happen overnight. I know we all become impatient, but I think we're doing the right things. If we can just keep focused and not get distracted and really court businesses and look for every opportunity to invite businesses to come here. And what you're doing with your group you're meeting with now, when a business comes here, introduce them to other business owners and presidents and let them tell what a great place Troy is to work and how easy. And I've heard so many comments recently about how the building department is easy to work with. Even tonight, Pam was telling me how the engineering department was easy to work with. So people, even locally, are seeing change. We just have to get that message out regionally, nationally, globally. And anything we can do, I think, is never, ever wasted in that effort. So we're on the right tracks, but we just have to continue. We can't just have the goal. We have to figure out what the steps are now to achieve those. And I think we're in the infancy stages, but going the right directions. But that's engaging the entire community and comparing with other communities. I think we're going to turn this corner. And
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
Thank you. I think that I could use all of your help.
I think on the community piece, John, I know that at the convention we talked about the Ciroli Institute, he talks about the Trinity, and I know that my colleague just talked about attracting the business, but the real emphasis is on growing what we have, and I think the idea of you're going in with the community, that's where you'll hear, and that will help Mark Miller find out who's an entrepreneur, what are they working on, and then we can put together that Trinity, which grows the business, because it's internal. We know we have entrepreneurs here. We know we have, as you pointed out on here, an educated workforce. So the roots are here. We just really need to grow them. In response, I kind of want to go back to what you said at the beginning, which was the first thing, and that was the partnership. One of the things that I think hurt us publicly in a big way, and that may have made the laughingstock piece, was to hear meeting after meeting after meeting, poorly managed, poorly managed, poorly. Absolutely not true. But the partnership between city council and the city manager is essential going forward. That needs to be hit right off. And I have to confess that I have a concern that we have sitting here with 70 years of elected and appointed experience and then leaving just 10. Just as we just heard about what happened in certain departments when you just have that goodbye to all that institutional memory. I think it's, again, very important for Robin to stay, because Robin has had a key role, not only in the city work, on planning commission, serving on council for the terms that she has, but also in the state and nationally. And so I think that a good partnership can be hit, but I think it's essential for council, whether you're going to do a retreat or something, to get off on the right foot. Because without that tension, I think all of the community will suffer.
And John, on the business side, we already, we have the businesses that are the ones that are going to be growing over the time. We've got hospitals, nurses, that kind of the care, that's going to expand. We've got the batteries. Even though the plant is elsewhere, the headquarters is here, and many other things that have to do with IT, technical things, education, the partnership with Oakland University and Beaumont Hospital with the medical school. Those are the kinds of things that we need to have grow even more. And that's why I think it would be important that maybe you already have people from those businesses coming to your roundtable meetings, but if you don't, to reach out to those people specifically and say, who do you know, what, you know, in the area that you'd like to have them be in Troy. There also is the area of the restaurants and the entertainment field that is something that I think we can expand on. When companies come here and they make movies, it means that, you know, they're spending their dollars here, but they're also shining a light on this particular area. So I think that that's going to be important too. There are a lot of positives that have occurred, but those are the ones I think that you'll want to accentuate more. And I know I'm sort of preaching to the choir here. This is things we've talked about, but I think we need to specifically mention those that we do have and get more, you know, attract more in that are in those particular areas, those areas that are going to grow. Because some areas have gone away, others have, you know, replaced. We still have a wonderful diverse subdivisions in different price points and different ages of, you know, the homes within this community. So I think that's a big draw for people too. Anybody else?
We're also interviewing for an economic development specialist that'll enhance our efforts of growing existing companies by making, you know, he or she will make, you know, cold knocks essentially daily on businesses.
Councilwoman McGinnis?
I was just going to say that, I mean, I think that there's kind of the question, rhetorical question of what is our future, but if you just take a look at what we're talking about right now versus what we've been talking about for the last 2 years, somehow, really without making a big deal out of it, there's a change here in coming to this council table and trying to convince ourselves how we can go back and stabilize, and we can convince the staff that they need to go back and stabilize and not be this forward-thinking group that I think the council has been, or the staff has been, and management has been. We really had to kind of step back and deal with things from an emergency situation, and really without, you know, demand and the need to strategize. It's just kind of been this organic movement towards, look at what we're dealing with now. This is goal setting, and I think that it gives the people here at the table, hopefully the next group of people that we'll see the next time we're here, that group as well, something to look forward to and something to strive to. And I'm hoping it does the same thing for the employees as well. I mean, it's what's listed here are things that we're not right now, but we really want to be. And I think that that's a much different feeling sitting at this table, and hopefully in the departments and in the, you know, the day-to-day operations of positives. And these are things that every community wants to be, and basically how can we utilize our employees and our council and our management to achieve those things. It's a different feeling, and I applaud you for putting it forward in this way. And like I said, it was very organic. It's just kind of the way that we've progressed. Hopefully that will continue. I mean, I think that there's probably, just with the time that we're in and knowing that things are going to be a little bit different when we come back here. You know, that uncertainty, I think, is something that people don't want. We've been working really hard to get to a stable environment, and I'm sure it will be stable again, but it will be different. So I'm sure that bit of uncertainty is kind of leaving things hanging in the balance. But if we keep our eyes on moving forward, and all of the things that we talk about, whether it's economic gardening, the things that we bring back from MML, I mean, I just see a lot of really good things, and I hope that we continue to focus on that, and I think that it will keep us moving forward. So,
Councilman Fleming?
As one of the 3.5 that will be remaining of this council for the next meeting, I know we're losing a lot of local knowledge, and that's actually a fact. It's going to be hard to replace that, but I'm looking forward really to embracing new council and working with management with the new council, whoever they may be. We don't have control of that at this table. What we do have control of is our attitude and whoever's elected, working with them to move this city forward. And I believe that everyone that's running wants to move this city forward. So I'm looking forward to embracing that. I'm saddened by some of the people that are leaving, but let's embrace the change and the future and work forward together with the new team. And I'm looking with great expectations.
Well, one thing we did do, we accepted what our situation was at,
Yes.
and then we adjusted what we had to do, and now we're advancing on to the next levels, what we have to do next. And that's something that businesses have done and had to do. Societies have had to do. If you read any history and you see what has happened, some things are not within their control, but they had to accept certain things. Sometimes it's weather related, sometimes it's invasions or whatever, and then they adjusted and then they advanced and moved on. And I think that's the important thing that we need to be doing.
And it really is an evolutionary process. I mean, we started out that we had this huge crisis, and to see if we could even not go bankrupt, essentially. And had to look at best practices and cutting staff to still deliver good services. But essentially, that's pretty much behind us now. And so we're now, and now other cities, I mean, I would not want to start over again in another city and do this again. It was a horrible experience, quite frankly, but it had to be done. But now it's going to be a good experience because we can all concentrate as a community. Let's get that revenue line. And other cities are, unfortunately, will be going through a budget crisis every year until they can stabilize. We're stable.
Councilman Beltramini, did I see you say one?
Well, as we sit here, I mean, I think that may be the best part of all of this, John, is there's a place for everybody in this, and in growing our community and moving it forward. Whether you sit here at the council table or you're a volunteer or a related kind of expert out in the community to help this move forward, and there are numerous ways to engage the community, whether it's structured or not. And at the end, you know, we spend the next year, 18 months redeveloping, and then that shows up in the tax base. And that's the goal, is to have this all show up in the tax base, and it brings new people in, which also rejuvenates our neighborhoods.
Right.
So it is, what kind of skill do you want to use to move your city forward? And there's a place for it there. Absolutely.
Call to action.
Councilman Snyder?
Well, I think that's a good way to end it. I think that's well said. And the only really thing that I have to say, John, is that I think you did a great job. When we went into closed session, I think this group came together every time that I can recall when it came to giving you direction on some of the tough things. And it was all unanimous, and it was all consensus in this room, and you accomplished every single thing that came out of those sessions. And I think you should be commended for that, and I really do. And I just want to say thanks again to everybody that's not going to be with us in another month or so, and the 3.5 that are still.
Well, but some of us will see each other. There are a lot of functions that are occurring within October now that we'll see each other. So, but it is the.
And I don't want to leave Lori out. Every time we had closed sessions and talk with Lori,
She's the best.
she's the best.
She's the best.
She's the
Really,
best.
really.
Well, that's why.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Sorry to get nervous and mention.
Yeah, I know. I was too.
Now, I just got this.